All right, welcome to lesson 6.2, part 1. Today we're going to talk about how to solve one-step equations by adding and subtracting. The objective is I can solve one-step equations by adding and subtracting. First, let's review some vocabulary terms. The word coefficient is a word that you've been hearing a lot in class. The coefficient, helps if I mix these correctly. Coefficient is the number with the variable it is attached to the variable. It tells how many of that variable there is. For example, if you have 7x, that means you have 7 x's. If x equals 2, that means you have 7 2's, which means you're doing 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, or 7 times 2. All variables have a coefficient. Every single one. Every time you see a letter in math, it's got a coefficient. If you don't see one, then the coefficient is 1. The coefficient can only be invisible if it's 1. If we have 1x, we're just going to write x. I'm not going to say I have 1x, because math is all about shortcuts. All right, let's talk about equations. Equations have an equal sign and can be solved. We use inverse operations. Inverse operations are used to solve equations. That means operations that undo each other, kind of like opposites. Inverse and opposites are similar words. So addition and subtraction are inverse operations. They're opposites. They undo each other. Multiplication and division are inverse operations. So these are the 4 big ones. You need to know that addition and subtraction are inverse, and multiplication and division are inverse, which you talked about a little bit in 6th grade. Okay, let's talk about writing and solving one-step addition and subtraction equations. Today we're just going to look at solving for now. Or for this part. All right, so if we have the equation negative 12.2 plus x equals negative 4.55, step 1, what is happening to the variable x? What operation is happening on the side of the equation with x? Well, here we have an addition sign. So we have addition is happening. Step 2, what is the inverse of that? What's the opposite of addition? In this case, it is subtraction. And step 3 is that we are going to use the inverse. We're going to subtract on both sides of the equation. Here's what that means by both sides. If you draw a line down your equal sign, you now have 2 sides. So we like to separate things by the equal sign. We've got the left side with the variable. We've got the right side with the answer. All right, we're going to use subtraction. Actually, we are not. Because this is a negative number. 12.2. Now, normally, when we're adding, if we had a positive number here, we would use subtraction. In this case, we're actually going to use addition. We're going to add the opposite, which is subtraction. So let's use subtraction. We'll do it with subtraction this time. So we're going to take away negative 12.2. Excuse my verbal processing through the problem there. Remember, when we minus a negative, it becomes a positive. So this is essentially the same as adding positive 12.2. When we use inverse operations, we are canceling this out. Negative 12.2 minus negative 12.2 is going to give us 0. So this cancels out essentially, which means all that we're left with is plus x equals on this side of the equation. All that's left is x. To keep it equal, we have to do it on both sides. If I subtract negative 12.2 on the left, I need to subtract negative 12.2 on the right. Get out your handy dandy calculator. I have negative 4.55 minus negative 12.2, which is the same as adding 12.2 at 4.55. I went ahead and hit the button to make it negative because my brain is tired this morning. And I am going to, I'm just going to say plus 12.2. I end up with 7.65. That's my answer. So x, because there's nothing left, right? 0 doesn't change the value of x. X equals 7.65. So there is our answer. All right, let's look at one more example of how to solve one-step equations. Here we have x minus 1.5 equals 5.25. This time, step 1, what is happening to the variable x? This time we are subtracting. That's the operation that we're seeing here. So we're doing subtraction. What is step 2, what is the inverse of subtraction? Well, the opposite or the inverse of subtraction is addition. And step 3, we're going to use the inverse on both sides of the equation. Now, I like to draw the line down, the equal sign. That helps me. If you don't feel the need to, you don't have to draw the line. It's just something that can be helpful. All right, so we are going to use the inverse of subtraction. We're going to use addition on both sides of our line here, on both sides of the equal sign, to solve for x. I'm going to add 1.5. Minus 1.5 plus 1.5 makes 0. It cancels out our 1.5. So you can bring down the x. So x is all that's left on this side. We have to do the same thing to the other side. If you do it to one side, you do it to the other. We're going to add 1.5 over here, which is going to bring us up to 6.75. So x equals 6.75. Which makes sense if you have if we replace x with 6.75, I have $6.75. I buy something for $1.50. I'm going to get $5.25 back in change. Cool. All right, go ahead and move on to your must-do and let us know if you have questions.